evening and welcome to the Velocity of Now with me, your host Thomas Sheridan. It's the 10th of February 2016 and the show is now being exclusively broadcast here on Thomas Sheridan Arts on YouTube, and I'm glad to have you along. It gets uploaded on between 11:30 and midnight every Wednesday night GMT. That's about 7 o'clock Eastern, but you can listen to the show anytime after that. It's just that I like to kind of make an event of it because I think it's kind of powerful to tap into the moment by scheduling the show. Some of you have said when the link appears you don't get the little icon. That's because it's a weird kind of glitch with YouTube and Facebook that if you posted the link beforehand, you never get the graphic for like a week or so later. It's really strange. But anyway, this is the show tonight. Now, I hope you're all keeping well. I've been keeping well too. I've been busy. The weather here is terrible. We've had some incredible storms. The waves are amazing. But again, it hasn't been snowed. So I hope if you've been snowed in somewhere, you're staying warm and you're listening to this. And tonight, I'm going to talk about a subject that I have never heard anyone talk about in alternative media, other than the usual, fear porn mongering about Molech. And that's the whole concept of bull symbolism and cow symbolism. Now, you have people like David Icke saying that everywhere you look in human art, you see human reptilian hybrids. And he uses this as proof that somehow human beings are the slaves of a reptilian hybrid race, based on this idea that these reptilian archetypes are everywhere. And they are very, very common. There's no doubt about that. But if there's one animal archetype that is absolutely universal and intimately connected to human beings, it is the archetype of the bovine, the bull, and the cow. No matter how far you go, right back to the beginning of human art, human cave art, there are depictions of bulls and human beings in the same imagery. There is no animal, on cows as well, there's no animal on earth that even comes close to how deeply connected and rooted this archetype is with humanity. If there was one species out there that we could probably claim to be our universal power animal, it would probably be the bull and the cow. Now, both are very important in several ways, but I want to talk about specifically, I want to talk about different things tonight. This might be a very long show, this. But we're going to look at the archetypes. We're going to look at them culturally and go through them one by one to try and understand how deeply this is. Now, let's take it to a sort of a basic level, right? The early feral bovines that, wandered the world, yes, they would have been a very good food source for human beings. But this seems to have happened later. At the time when the relationship with man and the bull and the cow began, the main food source in terms of the hunter-gatherer thing was the large herbivores, the large animals such as the woolly mammoth, the auroch, and the large elks, particularly the enormous elks in this part of the world. There was maybe an evolutionary mandate, or a spiritual mandate, or a macho mandate to attack the largest animals. So in terms of, say, feeding or eating, cows were way down the order. But still, they appeared in the artwork on the cave walls. The bull and the cow is everywhere. There's a multifaceted aspect to this. You have the bull in culture, the bull in agriculture, the bull in machismo, masculine culture, the bull in feminine culture, and you have the bull as a food source and the bull as a kind of a mythological compensatory archetype for the shadow of mankind. Now, with that, first thing I want to talk about in this context is bullfighting. Now, it's very easy for us that don't come from the Iberian world. And remember, not all the Iberian world practices bullfighting. It's only about half of Spain is it a popular, it's not even a sport, it's a religious ritual. We'll talk about that in a second. It's a spiritual event. is it practiced in the northern half of Spain? It's barely practiced at all. Certainly not in the Celtic-Iberian regions. It's practiced in Portugal, parts of Portugal, in southern France, and several Latin American countries. But variations of it, or should I say, different versions of it, are also practiced in places such as India and other cultures. You cannot have something that's deeply enriched, entrenched, and an integral part of Spanish culture, Iberian culture, as bullfighting, and say they're all barbaric, cruel events that are blood sports. It's very easy to say that. That does not explain it at all. There's something else going on here. There's something very deeply going on here. It's clearly a spiritual experience. Now, people are all going to go, how could you say killing a bull is spiritual? That's because we have in the modern age, in the post-Christian age, a very bizarre notion of what spirituality is. We think spirituality is all love, peace, happiness, and light. And that's one of the problems with modern human beings. If we've rejected the darkness of spirituality, we've turned our back on the shadow. We've sought to destroy it. We've attached it to the ego, and we've seen it as an aspect of ourselves and humanity that must not be explored in any spiritual sense. This is why we are screwed up as a species today. This is why it's expressed in other ways. We may not have dark spirituality, which we should, but in a country like the United States, you have 50 million abortions every year. You have murder all over the place. You have school shootings. They don't have these things in Spain. They have all kinds of other horrors that express themselves because the shadow of mankind is not properly validated. And this is what the bull represents. The bull represents the shadow of mankind to be conquered in an archetypal sense and transformed into a transformative, transmutive event. You have to have darkened spirituality. You have to have the Lucifers, you have to have the Dark Knights, and you have to have the conflict played out in the conscious world in order to satisfy this within the subconscious world. So you New Agers and Christians who go on about peace, love, and turn the other cheek, your spirituality is completely wrong and distorted. And this is why there's so much wickedness and evilness in the New Age movement, because they do not validate the dark spiritual archetypes, the shadow. And we're going to go there tonight on this show and explore it. Now, in terms of the bull, the most common representation of this idea of conquering the shadow is the image of the Minotaur inside the labyrinth. This is one of the reasons I called my first book Puzzling People, The Labyrinth of the Psychopath, because the archetype that I was bringing forth there was that we had to go in to tackle this dark underside of humanity if we are to grow as a species. So therefore, instead of turning the other cheek, saying it doesn't exist, unconditional love and all that bullshit, we had to confront that there was a interspecies predator among our people, and we were going to have to go into that labyrinth as a society in order to conquer that in the darkness. Now the Minotaur represents this. He's a half bull, half human being. He's not necessarily a psychopath. In many cases he represents the idea of restrained behavior. So you go into the labyrinth, which you negotiate the darkened corridors till you eventually conquer the Minotaur. And you bring out the Minotaur's head, the bull part. And what you've done then is you've tamed the shadow of mankind. In many ways, the Minotaur and the story of the labyrinth could be an allegory for the limbic regions of the human brain, which act as the gearbox of the human brain and stop us from doing, shall we say, barbaric behavior. I don't like to use that term, but that's what it gives us wisdom, restraint, compassion. And the Minotaur must be sleuth in order for that to happen. So that's the most famous one we have of all, but that's only the tip of the iceberg. The Spanish, Portuguese, the Southern French, and the Latin Americans who practice bullfighting are probably, and I know all you animal rights activists and vegans are going to go nuts when I say this, are probably healthier societies for it. I wouldn't go to a bullfighting event because I take out my shadow in other ways. I take it out through loud music and things like that. You have to get it out somehow. But that's how they do it. And it's a cultural thing. And it's not fun for the bull, but those bulls live like kings. Those bulls will live a lifestyle before they go into meet the matador that will be beyond any lifestyle that most humans will ever enjoy. So the bull is not just like the bull that dies in the bullfighting ring at the hand of the matador has a much better life than any bull that's not grass fed, lives in a factory and becomes a cheeseburger. So those of you who are saying it's a barbaric sport, if you were given the chance between a cow or a bull that was going to live in a barn or a shed in Dakota, be pumped full of steroids and given all these other chemicals, to have that or to have a chance of a longer life in the glorious Iberian sunshine, and then having all the women you want, all being treated like a kind of a living deity of a god, and then facing the matador. I know which one I would pick. I'd rather go into the bullfighting any day. So get off your high horses with this. Oh, they're all backward down there. In fact, in many ways, they're probably healthier. Does that mean we should have bullfighting everywhere? No, it's culturally specific. There's other ways of doing it, but I'm not going to pass judgment on another country who has their cultural traditions expressed in a different way. Once they don't force them on me, I'm happy. Now, talking of the bullfighting, we'll talk about this. This could be a long show tonight. Talking about the bullfighting, right? The bullfighting. According to Wikipedia, bullfighting, also known as tauromaquia or tauromachy, which is known as, from the Greek, tauromaquia and Portuguese, bullfight, is a traditional spectacle of Spain, Portugal, and parts of southern France, and some Latin American countries, Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, Venezuela, and Peru, in which one or more bulls are fought in the bull ring. Although it can be identified as a blood sport, within these areas it is practiced. It is not considered a sport, but a cultural event and art form. And there are no elements of competition in the proceeding. Now, in bullfighting, you have, it's not just a case of the bull being slaughtered and the matador, who's the one who actually kills the bull. There are toreros who actually are in the vault, who set the kill up before it. These people are often killed. There has been hundreds of famous bullfighters who have been killed in bullfighting over the years. It's only in recent times that many of the matadors and the toreadors survive, because we have antibiotics, we have better doctors, and so on. It's not just killing. Now, where does it come from? It comes from the ancient world, everywhere, not just the Middle East. We're always given that. It comes everywhere. For example, the Nuragic people, it's always a light and shadow thing, death and life. It's always about that. The Nuragic people, who were a mysterious Neolithic, megalithic mound building and structure building people in Sardinia, they worship the bull, and we know this because they've left these remarkable portals in their towers, which they built all over Nuragias, all over the island of Sardinia, and the light shines through a portal opening in a darkened room, and the sun forms on the wall the shape of a bull's head. Again, in the darkness, the bull comes as light. You see, it's always the human and the bull. The relationship is always light and dark. The labyrinth inside the Nuragic's temples, and so on. It's always about that. And so this goes back everywhere, from people from the Epic of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh and Enkidu fight and kill the bull of heaven. The bull seems indestructible for hours till Gilgamesh dances in front of the bull. You see, lured it with his tunic and bright weapons, and then Enkidu, who represents the matador, he thrusts his sword into the bull and kills it. So it goes back it's it goes back everywhere. There's also a thing of bull leaping, where jumping over the bull so it doesn't gore you or kill you. And it is machismo, but it's also about conquering and conquering fears. And then the bullfighter or the matador then transforms these fears of death and darkness as a ritual he's a conduit into the people observing the ritual. Now, the bull symbolism in this sense also gave birth to Christianity. I know you Christians, and killing of bulls is a huge part of Christianity, because Christianity is based almost entirely on the Mithra cult. The Mithra cult was the religion of the Roman legions and the Roman centurions, and this is their god, and it's all the relationship between Mithra and Christ are almost identical. It's just that Mithra is the bull slayer. Now, in the priesthood of the Mithran school, how they used to indoctrinate the centurion, the centurions, was that they would, or the legionnaires who reached the top of the cult would be sort of like the clerics. Would they place them under a frame? A live bull was brought on top. The bull's throat was cut, and the fresh blood from the jugular vein of the bull would pour all over the initiate. That's where baptism comes from. That's where baptism comes from. That's where Jesus drinking red wine, or the priest drinking red wine at Mass comes from. It's the blood of Mithra. It's not the blood of Christ, the blood of Mithra. It was just changed, adopted, the archetype switched around, and that became what Christianity is. So the most influential religion of the world to this day is based on a bull killing cult. This was the primary religion within Rome, within the Roman world. In medieval Spain, bullfighting was considered a noble sport and reserved just for the royalty, who, the only ones who could supply and train the animals. But they soon discovered that there was a socially healing aspect within attending these bullfightings, and then it became a professional a ritual, should we say, open to all from about the 1720s on. Initially, it was the matador would have been a nobleman, and the toreadors would have been the commoners. So it was not just only symbolic of a battle on the battlefield, but it was symbolic of a battle in the spiritual world as well. In the Spanish bullfighting, you have the corrida de toros, the running of the bulls. And you have the three matadors each fight bulls, each of which is between 2 and 6 years old and weighs no less than 460 kilos. So it's an enormous bull, over 1,000 pounds. Each of the matadors has 6 assistants, 2 picadores, lancers, a mount on a horseback, and bandoleros, who along with the matadors are collecting those toros. And the entourage itself is what's involved in the ritual. Now, don't think of it as a sport. Think of it as a religious ritual. Now, to drive that home, next to the bullfighting ring is a Catholic church. Nowadays, it's a Catholic church. And there's so many fatalities of bullfighters and matadors. This is why, it's a blood sport. But the chances of a bullfighter being killed, or a picador or a toreador being killed by a bull, is not that unusual. So it's not like a one-way street. It's not just like some little guy in tight trousers and a silly outfit killing a bull and getting. He's in grave danger himself. Matadors usually are gored every season, and picadors and bandoleros they're less killed. And as I said, it's only antibiotics and modern surgery that has actually changed things. There's even a bull ring, as I said, there's a religious building next to the bull ring where a sacrament is given, and the most common sacrament is called the anointment of the sick or the last rites. That's how dangerous bullfighting is. Now, if you talk to supporters of bullfighting, they say it's an integral part of their culture. In Spain, it's the national festival. It's based on the idea of the interaction of the man and the bull. It's a ritual of ancient origin based on artistic impression and command. Ernest Hemingway, in his book Death in the Afternoon in the 1930s, said that bullfighting is the only art which the artist is in danger and in which the degree of brilliance in the performance is left to the fighter's honour. The bullfight is regarded as a demonstration of style, technique, and courage by the participants, and a demonstration of cruelty and cowardice by its critics. And the bull is always killed, right? The bull is the sacrifice. Sacrifice has always been a part of human culture. And you can say, well, we've all moved on now, we don't have sacrifice. We still have sacrifices. World War I was a sacrifice. The Soviet gulags were sacrifices. So there, in the context of modern humans, is how deeply rooted, through bullfighting, man's connection with the bull is. It still exists in some parts of the world to an extreme degree. Which brings us to the idea of the sacred cow in India. The same thing. Show me another animal that human beings are universally more culturally connected with. It goes on everywhere. Except for the Abrahamic religions. Now, how this idea for this show came about was, not too long ago, someone came up to me and started slagging off my pagan beliefs in a condescending way. This person was a Jehovah's Witness. I was very polite and didn't, I just smiled and said, thank you very much. But when she immediately compared paganism to the pagans of the Bible and Molech. Now, we all know that the Truth Movement is just a backdoor for Christian fundamentalism from the American Bible Belt, and that's why they bring up things like Molech and all this nonsense. The Molech story is not real. It's just a story. There's been no hard evidence ever found of it. Although it probably could have happened, it may not have been as literal as babies being sacrificed to the god Molech. Molech is also Baal. Now, what's interesting about that? Baal is almost certainly Allah. The three deities of the Abrahamic world are all originated in demons that appeared before humans. Judaism came from the fire golem, which appeared before Moses. Baal appeared as a jinn before Muhammad, and the Holy Ghost, a succubus, impregnated Mary to give birth to the Son of God. They're all based on a demonic entity, all three of them. And all three of them have a dislike for the bull culture. You have the whole things of the graven image of the bull that the Israelites began worshipping, the golden calf, when they lost their mind control by Moses. You have in Islam prohibitions against bullfighting because they say it's cruel. It's based on a fatwa against it because they say it's cruel to the animal. That's not why it's banned. It's banned because they know it has a deep connection. So in Islam, you can have sex with a 9-year-old girl. You can chop off a person's head. You can stone a woman to death for not looking at another man. But hey, You can't kill bulls because it's cruel. See, they're liars. That's not the reason why. They know that their own religion is rooted in bull worship. It's Baal, and that's who Allah really was. And they they don't want their followers slipping back into the pagan world, just like the born again Christians deny the whole Mithra cult, even though it's there, because they know that they're rooted in that as well. And Judaism as well, the golden calf. We're intimately connected with the cow at the very base. So the next time someone tells you that human beings are, and anamorphic human beings and zoomorphics of reptilians prove that we're connected to alien lizards, just remind them of the connection we have to the bull. It's thousands to one. And yet no one ever thinks about it or talks about it. Now, why would the bulls become, or the cow become, such an integral part? Well, in ancient Ireland, bulls and cows and cattle were actually a form of money. This is why you have the Epic of the Tyne, and you have again, light and dark fighting each other at the end. You have Queen Maeve going over to steal the bull from the Ulstermen in a raid that involves that Cuchulainn then rides to the aid. Now, he's not riding so much to the aid of Ulster, he's riding to the aid of the bull and what the bull represents. Cuchulainn dies, and he is transformed into during part of the battle, he transforms into a non-human entity where he has this kind of berserker meets shamanic state, and eventually he's killed after a long battle, straps himself to a standing stone with his own entrails, and is transferred to heaven by the Morrigan. But the bull is then taken back to Roscommon, to Rathcrogan, and the two bulls, they have a fight. Now this is, again, light, dark, male, female, contrasts, opposites, and it begins with pillow talk between Queen Maeve and as well, she's having sex with King Ale. And so it's like sex, death, male, female. Now at the Bruno Bettelheim, where Newgrange now, and this is the main centre of megalithic Ireland in County Meath, the Boyne River, Bruno Bettelheim means the bend in the Boyne. That's where Newgrange is. Boyne River comes from Bonad, or what we want to pronounce it, the cow goddess. So that is representative of the river. So the river in the main river from which the Irish creation myth, more or less, is spawned, is based on a cow goddess. And Newgrange sits above the river, and it is the repository of the soul of Angus, the god of sexual love and poetry. He was brought to life as a result of a adulterous affair between the Bonad cow goddess and Dagda, who was basically the deity of the Truaid Danann. They had sex. It was illicit sex, on the sly, a bit of nookie on the side, between a cow goddess and a supreme male deity of the heavens, and the production was the god of sexual love and poetry. So the modern human, he's not just obsessed with, reproduction and farming and killing. He represents higher aspects. He represents art. He represents romantic love. And that's what on the winter solstice, when the sun penetrates through the opening, the portal above the passage chamber at Newgrange, and lights up the interior of the tomb, it is the sacrament of the rebirth of Angus the god as two things. It could be interpreted as the seminal fluid of the Dagda. It could be also interpreted as the milk from the goddess Bonad. So the goddess milk brings us to the next important aspect of this, and that is we have bovines keeping us alive on multiple levels. Cow's milk is commonly drunk by human beings. People who say human beings shouldn't be drinking milk, cow species milk, are missing the point. it's not only giving us nutrition. Now, of course, you should get raw milk if you can. I do. I'm fortunate enough to get it. And that's why raw milk has been so good for my health, and it would be good for your health if you took it too. But it is a sacrament. It is a sacred union that is bonding us as humans with our closest species to us, the cows, the cattle, the bovine. Just think about that. People say human beings are so disgusting. They're the only creatures, what the vegans say, they're the only creatures on earth who drink the milk of another animal. And that's not true at all, by the way. Wrong. Look on it this way, morons. Human beings so entrust the cow and the bovine and the cattle that they actually would allow their own sacred beloved child to feast upon the milk of this species and no other. That's the link we have with the cow. It's so deep. It's so incredibly deep. The cow also gives us meat. So the cow and the bovine, the bull and the cow, they supply us with spiritual nourishment, and always have and always will. They also supply children with the milk that replaces the mother's milk. They provide meat. This meat gives us a level of essential oils, vitamin B12, and other nutrients that allowed our brains to grow larger, just like the union of the Dagda and the Boan allowed man, through the archetype of the goddess Angus, to transform from being an animal into a creature of the aesthetic, of the cultural, of the beautiful, of the magical. The cow's hide gives us clothing and footwear that allows us to travel, that keeps us alive in the winter, that becomes the animal skins which covered the inside of the tents and wicker roundhouses. That's how they kept them dry. The horn provides a drinking vessel. The Vikings. You see where this is going? Show me another creature that is connected to us. Agriculture, cow droppings is the best fertilizer. The best fertilizer. They can eat grass, which is almost unedible to humans, and process it through its complex digestive system, and out the other side produce pure brown gold that will actually fertilize any soil. It even has an alkaline content in it that will remove, to a degree, acidification from recently cleared forested land in order to actually put an element of alkaline balance back in the soil. And then you wonder why our ancestors thought cows and bulls were magical, and why they became a central focus of our cultures. They're not. Their meat is not, other than the Hindus, who still eat ghee and milk from cows and butter. There's almost no prohibition on the eating of the animal, and there's almost none anywhere in any culture. So, but even there, the Hindus still eat them through the milk and the ghee and the butter and the ice cream that they all eat. It's there. It's an intimate connection. The bull and the man and the bull, the cow and the woman and the cow. That's why next time you call a woman, call her a cow. You're actually, in the olden days, that would have been considered as a wonderful compliment. But because since the Abrahamic religions have this terror of the bull archetype in our souls, they have, shall we say, dehumanized the bull and debovinized the humans. Because there's no god between them and the demon in the sky that ultimately gave birth to the fire golem, Baal, and the succubus. Now, and the Christian aspect is interesting too. The book I'm currently working on, I'm very interested in this crossover period between Christianity and from paganism to Christianity. Now, I've spoken about how Merlin was the son of a devil and a servant of God, It meant he was a druid who was part of the changeover. And Sir Geoffrey of Mormont called him. The most interesting character in this respect is St. Kieran in Ireland. St. Kieran came from a noble family at Rathcrogan, the royal centre of Ireland, where the bull story of the Táin and Queen Maeve began. And he had converted, when you hear this story, he converted to being a Christian after he visited a local abbey where the monks were, and he brought a bull with him. Here we go. He brought a bull with him to the abbey, and when he was indoctrinated, when they decided that they would let him into the seminary and train him as a Christian monk, what did he do? He slaughtered the bull and then used the bull's vellum, the hide, in order to write the Book of Durrow and other ancient books. So it was that was telling you that Saint Kieran was a druid inside the church, and that's why he became the most powerful and influential figure in Irish Christianity, which the Romans didn't like, by the way. That's why St. Patrick only wanted priests who were ordained at Navan Fort in Armagh. St. Kieran set up Clonmacnoise on the Escariada between Tara and Galway Bay, the great road that ran across Ireland, formed by an esker, which is the remains of the retreating of the ice sheets, and it dumps all the material there, creates a natural road, a high road. This is where the expression a high road comes from, across the landscape, which became the sacred part, sacred, sacre, blood. And on the middle point of this Escariada, on the River Shannon, based on the goddess who was drowned trying to free the salmon of knowledge, or try to obtain the salmon of knowledge, he built the main monastery of Clonmacnoise. Now, I won't go too deep into that because there's a lot more to come in that in the future, but that's a hell of a story in itself. But anyway, that all began with St. Kieran doing the remarkable act, the very unchristian act of sacrificing a bull to the monks at the abbey and then using the bull's hide, the skin, in order to write holy books, of which the Book of Durrow, which came later, is reputed to have been written upon that hide, as were all the Irish mythologies that were written on the hides of animals. Written on the hides of animals by Irish monks who were really druids, doing their best to save the ancient mythology of Ireland, because they'd learned the mistake of what happened to druids in England and in Britain. They didn't put up a fight. They became fifth columnists within the Roman system, which I believe they remain to this day. And again, a bull was a significant factor in that. Which brings us to the idea of, like any spiritual tradition, any perversion can be corrupt, anything can be perverted and corrupted. Now you hear the expression the Brazen Bull. Now this is a horrific story of a torture device. It was a bronze bull that was actually designed, well, it was said to have been designed in ancient Greece. And according to Dionysius Syracuse, who recounted the stories, he said that it was a new means of killing criminals or executing criminals. It was a giant bronze bull. It was hollow on the inside, with a door on one side, and an acoustic apparatus built into the nose of the bull, that as the person who was locked inside the Brazen Bull was set on fire, they would heat the metal up until the person inside was roasted to death. As they were dying, their death energies and screams and the expansion caused by the roasting of their bodies would shoot through the nostrils, producing a horrific sound. Now this is black magic now, okay? You see that's completely different than what the Spanish, the Portuguese, and the French do with the bullfighting. This is when we're getting into the dark stuff. Again, Greece was a product of the Babylonian system, And if there was any truth to the Molech thing, this is the kind of lineage that your Christianity and all your other religions are based upon. The bull was designed in such a way that incense was placed inside it along with the criminal, so there would be smell of attractive, nice smells to hide the smell of roasting human flesh. The head of the bull was designed with a complex set of tubes and stops, so the prisoner's screams were converted into music. And according to legend, when the bull was opened and the victim's scorched bones were taken out, they were shiny and really bright and then made into bracelets. His screams will come through the pipes as the tenderest, most pathetic, most melodious of bellowings, said Perilos, the inventor of the bull, to Pharaohs. Folklorist ordered its sound horns to be tested on the maker himself, this is amazing. The guy who was reputed to invent the bull was then put inside the bull and roasted himself alive to test to see if the device worked. Now, this is how you deal with a psychopath. This is a real good archetype here. The Brazen Bull was obviously invented by a psychopathic mind. The people that he showed it to were so disgusted by the wickedness of the Brazen Bull that they locked him inside his own sick invention and roasted him alive. So do you see the Minotaur? We're back to that again. And Perilos, that's where the term meaning of peril comes from, believed he would receive a reward for his invention. Instead, after freeing him from the bull, Pharaohs threw him from the top, killing him. Phalaris himself is said to have been killed in the Brazen Bull when he was overthrown by Telemachus, the ancestor of Theron. Now, this is a biblical link to this as well. It goes back obviously to Molech and to Baal, in which infants were sacrificed alive within a bronze calf-headed statue by a deity being placed with their hands on the statue and sliding down on a bronze furnace. The noises of the child's scream were drowned by drumming and dancing, since the sacrificial altars did not have the pipes the Brazen Bull had. The practice of the city of Tophet are also cited by scholars to be inspiration for the Brazen Bull because of Akagas Carthaginian roots. Now, the story of itself apparently cannot be dismissed as pure invention, because Pindar, who lived less than a century afterward, expressly associated the instrument of torture with the name of the tyrant. So this tyrant, it probably did invent the Brazen Bull, and it was used to persecute Christians later on. Now, there's no real bull involved in this. You see, this is why this is black magic. If there was a real bull involved in this in somehow, it would be part of this connection. But there's not. There's only the sacrifice of a human, and then the transference of the human's death energy into an acoustic stream of black magic energy. And this is dark, dark, dark stuff. But that's when you take it to the dark side. There's no. You see, the majority of the world's connection to the bull and the cow is quite a beautiful thing. Or it's at least culturally very rich, and it lasts for a very long time. Bullfighting has lasted for thousands of years in Iberia because it works. And as I said, the matador gets killed in a lot of cases. The Brazen Bull is nothing other than a slaughter device. It comes from the same part of the world that gave us Abrahamic religions. Now, I'm not putting down anyone who's of Abrahamic faith. Don't think I'm putting your stuff down. You can believe whatever you want and take it any way you want. In fact, I have a lot of respect for Judaism, because of the three faiths from the Abrahamic world, Judaism is the only one that knows God is dangerous. And this is what Orthodox Judaism is about in many cases. This is why it's highly misunderstood. They know that their God, Yahweh, they know that their God is dangerous, and this is why they've developed this idea of protecting humanity through rituals. They're not just praying to that wailing wall just for the hell of it. They're trying to keep their monster god at bay. Orthodox Judaism does not see their God as a loving God. That's a Christian psychosis. They see him in a much more healthier way. And when they're actually doing all that praying at the wall with the black cube on their head, they're not Satanists like, morons will tell you. What they're doing is they're trying to save humanity from God's wrath. Jews and Gentiles, I might add. So Judaism has, of course, there's idiots in every religion, but the Judaism, at least Orthodox Judaism, has attempted to deal with this shadow part, and they are in a state of evolution. Now, these things take hundreds, maybe thousands of years, but at least they're on the right path, where Christians and Muslims are not on the right path, and they still believe that the way to actually appease their demon god is through evangelical crusades and forced conversions. Judaism doesn't do this. This is why it's that the three religions from the Abrahamic religion, the one that gets my respect is Judaism, because it does not have an evangelical crusade-like mentality. It also has the most wise and the most intelligent and thought-out relationship with the deity of the Middle East. So I'm not slagging your religion off. I'm just telling you what I know, what I've read, and you can believe whatever you want, enjoy your faith whatever you want. It doesn't matter what I say, it's not important. But I'm just trying to point out that the purpose of the Philosophy of Now and my work is to clean the slate clean. I am not going to take what other quote-unquote researchers have said and then stand on their shoulders, adding to my own mountain of bullshit. I'm not going to do that. I'm cleaning the state down, kicking the chairs out from underneath the sacred cows of the alternative movement, and starting from the scratch and saying, what the hell is Moloch really? What the hell is this really? What the hell is the real human connection to an animal symbolism? Blah, 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 blah. And that way we can actually have we're actually having our own kind of orthodox alternative path through this whole thing and begin again. I'm a maverick. I'm not one who follows or joins clubs. I don't start my own club. I just have my own scene. I share it, and if you like it, then you do. That's great. If you don't, fair enough. We can still be mates and have a pint. So I don't follow the path of others in any regard. I go down and I look and see, and I try to decipher the story. And this is what this story about the bull is tonight. It's me bringing you a version that will give you, see, ironically, this show is working on the same bull and bovine archetype. You have all the other ones going, it's Moloch, he burns the ganja, and he's like, oh my God, it's Moloch. They take him to Bohemian Grove, and they behind the woods, they let it fire, and they let it fire, warning, incoming bovine chemtrails, warning, buy my water filters, this kind of thing. It's I'm not interested in following that monkey circus. I will actually begin and look at things again. And it's healthy to do this. And also, that's me providing, I'm actually part of the cow archetype as well, the cattle archetype, because I'm showing you the other side. So therefore, you can make a wise decision. You don't have to go and see a bullfighting thing. I wouldn't go and see it. It would not be for me. But you don't have to go and see it. But you should at least, instead of dehumanizing the people who go to it and saying they're all like, fools who are horrible people who like just seeing animals killed, try to see the world in a way that you're blinkered, and we're all blinkered, we're all prejudiced. Your blinkered vision does not see it. It's very easy to put yourself in the shoes of another person and to judge them. But it's not that easy, really, when you start thinking of the complexities of psychology, archetypes, mythology, culture, tradition, and art. And we're in a whole different ball game. We're in a completely different place. Of course, in the Egyptian world, we know that the bull is embodied by the archetype of Apis, who is the embodiment of Ptah, who later that of Osiris. And richly perfected bulls were identified by god priests housed in the temple for their lifetime. Then they were embalmed and encased in a giant sarcophagus. A long sequence of monolithic stone sarcophagi were housed in Serapeum and were rediscovered by Argus Martith in Saqqara in 1851. The bull was also worshipped as Menawir, the embodiment of Atum Ra in Heliopolis, and Ka in Egypt. It's both a religious concept of, here we go, life force power, and the word of the bull. So it's the ultimate power animal of the West, is the bull, to use a shamanic term. In Iran, Zoroastrianism, of course, is very heavily related to the bull, and Zoroastrianism is the actual root of all religions in that context, in that part of the world. And again, it's basically a fire worshipping religion. They worship the same fire golem. You see, that's the irony of like the Moses archetype, is that Moses forbade his followers from following the sacred calf, which is Zoroastrian, but also at the same time too, Moses received the message of God through the same fire golem that the Zoroastrians still worship to this day. And the Zoroastrian idea, we're going back to prior to that, to ancient Persian texts, is the idea that the cow is also, and the bull, sorry, is beneficial of all animal life. So it's responsible for everything. And the mythological bovine in the Zoroastrian text is the Had Hayans, a gigantic bull so large it could straddle the mountains and seas that divide the 7 regions of the earth, and whose back men could travel from one region to another. And the principal follower of Shiva in the Indian world is Nadi, and that's in Hindu mythology. In the Indus Valley cultures prior to the Vedas, the bull was also a major factor in that culture. It's pagan. Everything is pagan. All the religions, even Hinduism, the roots are pagan. Bull masks are very commonly worn in Cyprus during many festivals, and bull figurines and terracotta figures are found in stone altars all over Cyprus. The Cypriots, the ancient Cypriots, the pre-Christian, pre-Islamic Cypriots, were again a bull worshipping culture, as were the Canaanites. Their god was Moloch, but it was also very closely connected to the Minotaur of the Cretans. And all these changed in much later on in Judaism, when Judaism was forming into a more cohesive religion. Not even like maybe 1,000 years of even that before the birth of Jesus Christ. The bull became the horned one, the devil. So he had turned it round. We don't know where that came from. That was then transferred into the goat, which became Baphomet. Then the horns, which came to symbolize the evil of the Vikings as being a heathen culture. The bull is everywhere. Everywhere. In the Hellenic tradition, you have the rape of Europa, all heavily connected to bulls. You have the bull of Crete. You have the sacred bull of Marathon. Of course, the Minotaur, which I've mentioned, and it goes on and on and on. In the Roman Empire, of course, we had the Mithra religion and all this kind of thing. There's a fantastic statue of Mithra at the British Museum in London, where the Romans is tarotomy of Mithra is cutting the bull's throat. There's also the idea of is a belief that in the Neolithic times that the new year began under the constellation of Taurus, the bull. That could have been the universal new year of the Neolithic people. It's just one of the things out there. And of course, I just told you about the Irish, and this isn't just about the Druids. Let's get particularly to the Druids. This would be the whole pan-Celtic Druidic idea. In Pliny the Elder, who was a Roman propagandist in the 1st century AD, spoke about the white-clad Druids in the sacred oak groves sacrificing white bulls. Now, we take this with a grain of salt, because it could be Roman propaganda, but this is what he wrote. The Druids, as this is what they call their magicians, hold nothing more sacred than mistletoe and a tree on which it is growing, provided it is the Valonian oak. Mistletoe is rare, and when found it is gathered with great ceremony, and particularly on the 6th day of the moon, hailing the moon as the native word for the healing of all things. They prepare a ritual sacrifice and banquet between the tree and bring up 2 white bulls, whose horns are bound for the first time on the occasion. A priest arrayed in white vestments climbs the tree and with a golden sickle cuts down the mistletoe, which is caught in a white oak. Then finally they kill the victims' sacrifices, praying to a god, rendering them his gifts for those whom he has bestowed. They believe that mistletoe given in drink will impart fertility to any animal that is barren and is an antidote to all poisons. Now, you take that with a grain of salt, but there's no doubt that the Druids did have the bulls as a central aspect of their culture. And it continues to this day. If you go down to the financial district of Wall Street, in Lower Manhattan, right at the start of Broadway, literally just in front of the Customs House building, is an enormous bronze bull. The Brazen Bull still sacrifices victims, screaming victims, to the demons of commerce and capitalism and money and trade and corporatism. It still goes on. The screams are now the runners on the trading floor screaming as in the stock market trading floor. And the Brazen Bull, you could even take it 1 step forward to the burning of the Twin Towers just across the street on 9/11. The Brazen Bull was there. It survived when the Twin Towers in Wall Street and the whole World Trade Center was turned to rubble. The brazen bronze bull of Wall Street, it still remained in its fighting stance on Broadway. Look at the Red Bull Corporation. It's heavily involved in dangerous activities. A lot to do with flying. You had that Fritz Springmeier guy who became a god for the Red Bull. He went up the highest any human being had gone without a rocket in a balloon and jumped to earth with a parachute. He sat with the whole world sat there and watched this spectacle live on the internet of Fritz Springmeier jumping for the Red Bull. It's incredible, isn't it? It never goes away. The bull is integral to our entire humanity on every level and often on surprising levels. And what does Red Bull do? It gives you wings. Who else has wings? Angels have wings. Fairies have wings. Demons have wings. Red Bull gives you wings. The element of the bull archetype is the sexual aspect. Well, the gender aspect especially. If you've ever been close to a bull, especially among a bunch of cows, which I have, you are so struck by how different the bull looks than the cows. It's hard to even believe they're the same species. The bull looks, you could not believe that it's the same species. The bull, especially if it's a dairy cow bull, looks completely different. They've got big, huge bones, enormous feet, very, very muscular necks in particular. I found that particularly interesting was the neck. They have the huge head and the massive ridges over the eyes, which the cows don't have. Female cows are very pretty. Bulls are very intense. He gets to mate with all the women in the field. He is the ultimate stud. And they're usually about the same height as a cow, but they're much more what's the word, voluminous. There's huge girth to them, and it's pure girth unless they're castrated. If they're castrated, they are physically the same size and weight as female bulls. So that's also another interesting kind of thing. They become fertile at 7 months. After 7 months, 7 moons, a bull is fertile. That's another aspect of why they were probably entered into our ritual and our spiritual and mythological experience as human beings. After the 7th moon, the male bull is then fertile, and there's an enormous growth in the scrotum and the testicles. They can have testicles as far down as 11 inches long, so a foot-long testicle hanging down from a 7-moon bull would have been a very powerful symbol to our ancient ancestors. Also, their penis remains hard even when it's not erect. That's another thing too. A bull's penis has a very different form of erection. It's always hard, even when it's not sexually aroused. And you hear the story of the color red uh, making the bull angry. It's probably an inciting him to charge, but the fact is that, like, cattle are red-green colorblind, so in bullfighting, it's really the movement of the matador's cape that really it incites the bull to attack and give a reaction. Now, bulls are incredibly dangerous, and this is happening a lot in Ireland now. In Ireland, a lot of the and I'm not completely against this idea. A lot of farmers are being paid not to farm and allow their land to go back to wild. And as a result, not only are the farmlands growing over with the thicket and forest, but also animals are, because the farmers are not as involved with the animals as much and have the same contact. Bull killings have increased a lot in Ireland in recent years because the bulls are returning back to a feral state, and this is what's happening here. We're getting the bull is becoming back as a almost like a wild animal. It's losing its connection with humans. I don't know what that says about us, but the bull is an extremely dangerous animal, extremely dangerous. I mean, even farmers are very wary, and that's why they have the ring around their nose made of copper that connects to the rope. This is just a tie. They're so unbelievably dangerous. We talk about having dangerous animals as if it's all tigers and so on, but the domesticated farm bull in this part of the world is still an extremely dangerous animal. They'll always be connected with us. Bulls will never not be part of us. They're used in heraldry. They were as aurochs on the caves of Lacau in France, and they've always been on the shields, cale paintings, insignia. The mythical bull of the heaven was the main part of the Epic of Gilgamesh, and it's not the only one. They have it in the Taurus, as in the zodiac as to Taurus, and it's in every mythology you could possibly ever mention. In Hinduism, I said the Nandi, and the bull is always predicted seated, and it's the vehicle of the god Shiva, and it's depicted as many of the images that gods symbolize. The bull is always going to be a part of us. And this is the main reason I've done this show tonight, is because people get hung up on the idea that only reptilians are zoomorphically integral with human beings. They're not to the level of the bull. Now, so think about the idea of the bull. Think about how you feel about bullfighting. Explore these ideas yourself and come to your own conclusions. It's a very interesting thing to look at, and you will find that it's very, very deep when you start moving in on it. As is the cow. The cow and the bull, the male and the female, very defined roles and very powerfully connected to the story of human development, from the days when they were painted on the walls of cave art many thousands of years ago, to Fritz Springmeier jumping out of a balloon to sacrifice himself and the whole world watching live to the Red Bull. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, and I'll see you all again next week, and thank them if they can't take a joke.